about 25 years ago, I made a transition from the work that I was doing with glycoprotein biochemistry. I was always interested in colon cancer, but I was working in glycoprotein biochemistry, and I had to make a change into tumor genetics, which is what I'd always wanted to do anyway. And I got a Funderburg Award that funded me for 2 years. It gave me some funds for 2 years, and that launched my career change, like a 90-degree angle change into tumor genetics, which was way more gratifying for me. And it was without the AGA's help, who knows how long that would have taken, you know. So I'm really grateful for that. And then, you know, much later, it was 16 years ago, was when Matt got a grant too, and then that was really kind of the high point in a way up until that time of what we were doing in genetics, but I'll let Matt tell about that.
So I was a junior in college at the time, and in my head I knew I was pre-med, I wanted to be a doctor, but honestly I didn't have a huge sense as to what that actually meant. Fortunately, I had a great mentor in my uncle here who was doing some great research out in San Diego at the time. We talked a little bit and decided to put together an application for an AGA summer research fellowship where I would come spend 10 weeks in the lab with him. We put together a small grant, and fortunately the AGA was generous enough to fund the work. I spent some time in the lab over the course of, 3 or 4 months or so, I think, and, you know, learned how to use a pipette, learned how to run a PCR, learned how to do some basic experiments, but you know, ended up being some pretty helpful work, you know, in the realm of Lynch syndrome and hereditary colon cancer genetics, as it turned out.
Oh, it was a huge thing too, because we were we had an idea about this one Lynch syndrome mutation that was going to be, we subsequently turned out to be a big deletion in the MSH2 gene, but no one had ever really, there's a reason to believe that they might be there because of the nature of the flanking sequences, but no one had ever really cloned one of these or made a diagnostic test for it. And we couldn't test any of the people in this family. So anyways, I figured it would take a good PhD about a year to solve the problem because it was new territory for us. And it was also to find something that wasn't there. It was like the James Cook expedition into the southern hemisphere, and it took them a long time to find out there's nothing there, you know, except Australia. But in any event, Matt, in the period of like 6 weeks, he actually cloned the DNA that had the break point in this, and then in 2 weeks after that, developed the diagnostic test that we've used. And it took years before industry had this kind of test that was around. So Matt, as a junior in college, solved a big, important clinical problem.
Like I said, at the time, in my head, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but didn't really have a sense as to what that meant. This really kind of crystallized in my mind, you know, what basic science research is and how it can really directly impact patient care. I went into this knowing a tiny amount about cancer genetics and came out with a great understanding of a very specific and very common hereditary syndrome. And ultimately, that's kind of fueled my interest going forward to the point where it's still really the focus of my work, both clinically and from a research standpoint.
The field has continued to grow really fast, and it's hard to imagine that we could be where we are in 2017 compared to where we were in 1992 or even 2001 during those two important transition points. And so all of the agencies that come forward with money, like the AGA Research Foundation, that makes such a big difference, because early on, we latched onto this guy early on with $2,000 or $3,000, not very much, and it made a big difference. And it's all of those little pieces here and there that make the research community that's been so robust over the last 25 years.
I would say that what ultimately was, financially probably a small investment was humongous for me as far as really just kind of lighting a fire, giving me a focus and kind of where I wanted to go with my career, and that's where I've continued to go with things. And it's been just a phenomenal gift really that I had this experience so early on.